Welcome and Akwaba to Adwene I must say Happy New Year to all our listeners. It's our first episode for the year 2026, which I believe is going to be a blessing to everyone. Adwene it's a podcast where we engage in quite meaningful conversation and thoughtful conversations around conditions such as mental health and neurodevelopmental condition among our Ghanaian society. I must say some people have asked for us to do some episodes in our local language, which we will try to blend these sort of, we will blend our conversations with that. I must also say that we do have some guests joining us in our subsequent episode. In fact, I'm pleased to say one of the top-notch individuals with really good experience when it comes to autism will be joining us around February time. But before that, we do have other people who will join us. But in the meantime, I am going to continue to do solo podcasts where we will continue our conversations around autism, the kind that we talked about in our previous episode, where our community, we often misses when it comes to our children. And today our focus and what we are going to talk about is autism and how autism looks like at home. And we are going to try and use some everyday examples of how it may look like and how our children may present for us to identify that it might be a symptoms or a trait of autism. Following on from the last episode, we did explain what autism is about. And autism, it's a neurodevelopmental condition. And what autism does is it has two main features, two core features when it comes to autism, and that is it impacts individuals' social communication and interactions, as well as impacting individuals' pattern of behaviors where people will have a restricted and repetitive behaviors as interest. Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition, so sometimes the signs and traits and symptoms are quite prominent for us as parents to actually see from the onset, from when the child are a bit younger, about where they are actually start to engage in some sort of activities. We may see them. But then there is a higher possibility that these may be missed. As parents, we may not be fully aware of it until social demands become really high for individuals. Now, let me focus a bit more about what I mean by when social demands become high. Now, social demands can become high, for example, when our children, they will be in nursery, they will be in primary school, and some of these traits may not be prominent because when they are in nursery or they are in primary school, they may have their own sort of friendship, which is quite in a bubble, in quite a small group of friends or people that they may want to talk to. And for us Ghanaians as well, we may our friends' children may be our children's friends, so they are quite very used to them and they will actually engage quite comfortably with them. And in primary school, they've got their own sort of group of friends which they know each other, and it's not a big group of friends. But then when social demand change, where they go to secondary school, where then in secondary school there are groups of children from different school coming to a particular school. So it's going to be quite a massive and a big change for our children, whereby they would then have to try to adapt to individuals as well as the environment that they are in. And this is where we do see a lot of differences as well as difficulties where our children may experience because social demand has changed. Not only that, people may move to certain places where children they were quite used to how they kind of really comfortable in their own sort of environment, but then to move from one area to another, to actually start to make friendship and to start to actually initiate conversations, to talk to people, it becomes somewhat difficult for our children. So that is what I mean when I say social demands changes. Then we may see a possible higher sort of traits or symptoms within our children, in terms of they will have to move from their comfort zone to actually unfamiliar zone and try to engage. And that is hence we talked about social communication as well as social interaction, i.e. interacting with other people. Let's talk a bit about some of the symptoms which we talked about in our previous episode about autism, where we talked about, for example, some of the difficulties or differences our children may face. It's more to do with the difference in communication. And when we talk about communication, not necessarily speaking, but then we also talked about communication in terms of gestures. So we're looking at, for example, eye contact. Is our children able to make eye contact when they are talking to people? And I'm quite mindful when I talk about eye contact and our children, because as a parent myself, and I mean, someone who grew up in Ghana, the use of eye contact, it's a conversation for that we will discuss in some of our subsequent episodes. But I think mostly when growing up, making eye contact, or when an adult is talking to you and you are continuously staring, it's not the greatest. So it's about measuring the use of eye contact. Are they not actually making eye contact at all, or are they kind of making intermittent eye contact? Sometimes eye contact may fluctuate. How comfortable are they when they are talking to people and looking at them in the eye? Some people may tell you that when they look at people in the eye, or when people look at them in the eye, it feels like they are either looking into the person's soul or the person is looking into their soul. So it makes it really uncomfortable for them to engage in such. So that is one thing that we are looking out for. We're also looking out in terms of social communication. We're looking out for individuals' facial expressions. Sometimes facial expressions may not match situation. And when I say it may not match situation, what I'm talking about is sometimes children may feel really anxious, particularly when they are to meet individuals that they don't feel comfortable to engage with. So that means the individual may be talking to them, but then, for example, they may be talking about something that has got nothing to do in terms of the child having to smile, but then they will smile instead of the appropriate facial expressions. They will use a different one. So for example, if someone may be talking about something really sad, they would then give an anxious smile. So we're looking out for, are their facial expressions actually matching in terms of the situation? We use that. We also talked about their use of gestures, like I'm doing when I'm someone who likes talking with my hands. How appropriate is it when they are actually talking to people and also using gestures? Again, we look at in terms of how verbal they are when they are socially interacting with other people. Are they someone who likes to initiate conversations? Are they someone who can actually bring their points across? Or some people will say that, oh, my child is quite shy. They don't want to talk in front of people. So are they able to engage and talk to people, bring their point across, or they just someone who somewhat we will say they are a bit more reserved? So we look out for that. We also look out for things such as the differences when it comes to social interactions. And that is, in this, I'm talking about their way again of talking, and in terms of reciprocity when it comes to conversation. So we're looking at the back and forth conversation. So for example, as a parent, when you are talking to your child, or will your child make a conversation out of nothing, or they are someone who will talk only when you ask a question. And even when you ask the question, they wouldn't elaborate on their responses. They will give you a one-word answer. They really seem there isn't a back and forth conversation when you are engaging with your child. So for example, when they finish school and they come, oh, how are you doing? And then they will give you a one-way and fine, wouldn't elaborate on their responses. That is what we are looking at. They are having like a chit chat sort of conversation. Their interactions with other people. And it's quite important we look out for interactions, not particularly with people that they are familiar with, but those that are unfamiliar. So when they meet other children that they don't know, how comfortable are they in terms of interacting with them? So what we're looking for is, for example, as mom or dad or family members, they may engage quite well with you, but then they may go out and they may meet other people and try to engage in conversation with them, but they may not feel comfortable again to initiate that conversations with them. So we look out for that. Obviously, when they talk to mom and dad and people that they are familiar with, it's something we look out for, but it's about people they don't know. And I'm not going to say people that, not every unfamiliar individuals, but maybe people of their peer. How do they engage with them? Again, another symptom or traits that we're looking out for when it comes to autism and our children is in terms of their friendship and their preferences. Okay. Now, again, how are they able to initiate conversations to make friends? So are they someone who can make friends easily? And when I say easily, it's actually, we need to think about it here. It's not like, are they someone who will go to people, they can actually go talk to them and then start making friends with them? Or are they people who are very quiet, relaxed and reserved? So when you go places, some children may want to just stay back and they will be quiet, reserved, wouldn't want to engage with anyone until people that they know has turned up, and then they will start to only engage with the individuals that they are really familiar with. Again, we also look at things for when it comes to friendship. We look at things such as, are they able to maintain friendship? Because sometimes individuals with autism, they may have their differences in terms of, they may feel that people don't understand them, and they may also feel that people may judge them in terms of certain behaviors and certain things that they may do. People may feel judged about it. So when it comes to friendship, are they choosing people similar to them? I mean, neurodiverse individual, or they are choosing any sort of friendship from there? And are they able to maintain that sort of friendship? And that is what we look out for. And are they someone who can actually interact and socialize with these friends? Because some of our children may want to only socialize if it is in their own terms. When I want, what I say by this is, it's a form of a control for our children, whereby they want to control everything they do in terms of when they are interacting and socializing with their friends. So for example, if you don't play this my game, then I will not play, or I will not interact with you. Okay, this is actually mine, and I'm not going to share this. This is for me. Now you have to do what I say. And for this, some of our children may have friends that the friends are quite tolerant and they really understand and may engage with them. But then if it's not in their terms, in terms of our children, then it will mean that they will not interact or they will not engage. So how is friendship looking like? Is it just always the child with autistic traits want things, they want to be in control of every sort of interactions or any game that they are doing? So that is what we are looking out for. There are other things in terms of interests. Some people may have particular interests where we call them. So some children like things like a particular toy, and that is the toy that they want. Others have interest in terms of, when we talk about the interest, we look at things like an abnormal sort of interest. And how would you know if this is an abnormal? Now, you think about it, a child has a particular toy or a child has a particular activity and they are really obsessed about it. That is the thing they want to do, and they will not even share that particular interest, or they can overly have an interest. For example, people like things like planes, where they will go to the airport, they will actually go and then take pictures of it, which anybody can do it. But then where the interest is quite excessive, that they will actually daily, and they will not stop talking about this sort of interest. They will constantly talk about it. They would want to know more. Children who like cars, really interested in cars, will be driving with parents and they will constantly be talking about the car. This is the car. So Dad, why is this car like this? Why? Constantly wanting to know. Okay. Not every child who will do this, I will say, is autistic, but then whereby as a parent you may think that is a bit obsessive, that is a bit too much. That is what we are looking out for. We're looking out for things such as individuals may have some repetitive sort of behaviors, body movements. Some people may have some movements which we would describe as maybe odd in terms of finger flicking. Some people may move their body in such a way that you may think it is not normal. We look out for sensory differences as well, where sensory, it's quite a topic that we talk about when it comes to diagnosis of autism, where we're looking out for children who struggles with sound. And that will mean that in loud places, they don't want to go. They don't want to go to the shop. When a car is driving past, they will put their hands in their ears to prevent that sound. They don't want to go to crowded places. Some children like to actually wear ear defense. That is what we're looking out for. We look out for things like texture. And when I talk about texture, I'm talking about texture of food, and they want to eat particular food. A lot of people talks about the fact that their children like to eat more dry food, like toast. They like to eat pastas. They don't like mix. Some children don't like vegetables. Some even don't like one food to touch another food. So for example, a vegetable on a plate, they would want it separate from maybe the yam or whatever is being cooked. They don't want things to touch. Okay. And sometimes when, in terms of texture as well, the feel of certain clothes, certain children don't want, for example, labels to be in their clothes. And so that they look out for, they don't like the seams in the socks. They don't want to feel that. And some children don't even want to wear clothes. Some don't like to wear shoes. I've had recently someone telling me about their child who doesn't want to wear a normal sort of shoes, but due to health and safety reasons, they're looking into the child wearing more Crocs than anything, to have something rather than walking barefooted. So those are another thing that we look out for. We also talks about things like sameness and routines. Some children will like routine, which routine I will say is really good when it comes to autistic individuals. And they want things to be done in a particular way, and they want things to be done in the same way. They find it very difficult when things changes or when plans are being changed and they are not informed about it. And I think in our community, this is something that we normally see, where as parents, we'd be like, okay, we are going somewhere, without informing our children. Maybe they also have got other things that they are doing, but it's not only that, it's the fact that they have not been informed. So it really gets put on them, which makes it quite difficult for our children in terms of coping and how having to manage these things. So those are the things in terms of when it comes to autism that we talked about. In our last episode, we also talked about the fact that some of these traits and symptoms may be missed in our community. And some of the reasons that became apparent is to do with the fact that autism in our society is seen very different in terms of our understanding of it and our perception of it. Let's talk about autism spectrum disorder. This is a general and this is an umbrella term that is being used to describe the different terms of autistic traits. What normally happens is in our community, for people to recognize that their children may struggle with autistic traits, whereby it can be visible. And that is a classic type of autistic trait where it will be there. People can see individuals presenting with traits that can be seen. However, when it comes to things like individuals struggling with social communication, social interactions, or other sensory difficulties, and then individuals are able to go on doing things by themselves and doing things without these traits not being visible, but then to the individual, they will do these things, but then when they get to their homes, they will then struggle. That is when autistic traits are missed within our children, because they are not highly visible for us as parents to see. It means all is well. And hence, when we look into the autism spectrum disorder, which is an umbrella for all the different types, it makes it a bit more easier to understand what ASD, which is the autism spectrum disorder, what it does in terms of classification is it looks into things like the severity of individuals' difficulties will determine the need that the individual or the support they may need. That is what actually happens, because individuals may need higher support needs than other people. So when we look at people can actually go to their work, we do have some really high intelligent individuals with autistic traits, and there are many examples in our communities now. Individuals that got high function people that are doing really, really well, and though they are autistic, and some of them they've got these diagnoses of autism, what had happened was their interest and their things that they are really interested in or attached to, these traits and diagnosis was identified earlier, and what had happened was they've been channeled to these interests whereby they are using it really well in our societies. So not only that these traits needs to be seen, for example, the repetitive behaviors and the restricted interest. However, people may struggle in terms of social communication. They may struggle with the interactions, but these may not be visible to us as parents. And some of our children, particularly autism in girls, there is evidence that girls do mask. Our children do really mask in terms of their symptoms, and they will go to school, they will do a whole lot with other children. And this is so they fit in with a particular group of people. But then when they come home, that is when they struggle a lot, because home is a safe place for them where they can feel free to be themselves. So they can have the meltdowns, they can have the emotional dysregulations when they are within their safe place. But when they are outside in places where they feel, no, I have to do everything to fit into these particular sort of situations. So that is what happens. As parents, these are the things that we need to look out for. That autism is not necessarily having to have that really differences where it's visible. It's not, these differences is not actually visible. Some of the classic symptoms are quite distinguished, and it can cause quite severe impairment in individuals when it comes to the classic sort of. But then other autistic traits will be put as the mild sort of traits, where we may not identify it, we may not see it, but then the children will be going through. And as parents, these are the things that we need to look in order to identify them and then work with our children, engage with our children to actually talk to them about it and see how we can best support them. Let's talk a bit about autism at home. It's important that as parents, we look out for the symptoms, but then how will it look like at home when it comes to autism and the traits? Okay. Sometimes autistic children may hold everything in all day. So let's put it, for example, a child may go to school and, they may sit quietly. They may actually follow rules. Children, like they may follow rules because they don't want to be shouted at. They don't want teachers to say anything about them. They are quite quiet. And as parents who describe it, my child is so quiet. And then another parent will say, I wish I had your child compared to mine. Okay, and these are some examples that we normally get. A child will not complain about anything. The teachers will actually say, oh, your child is really, really good in terms of very well behaved. Okay, I'm not saying that every child who is well behaved may have autistic traits, but what I'm saying is how consistent are these behaviors that a child is continuously wanting to follow rules. They don't like it even when people break rules. They really want, and this is when they are not at home. This is when they are outside their comfort zone, which is outside home, where in school they don't want to break rules, they don't want to do anything wrong. Even outside, they don't want to do anything wrong. But when they get home, that's when they become distressed. That's when they can become dysregulated. They can shout, they can throw things about, they can this is what we will say, that they will take the masking off. They will take the mask off because they feel more safer at home. They feel home is home to them and they can do anything because they don't have to hide their emotions. They don't have to hide them. In terms of their behaviors, they feel they can actually behave themselves whatever way they want at home. Okay, so then what then happens is the child uses a lot of energy at school. When they are outside, they will use a lot of energy to mask their behaviors in order to fit in. But then at home, it will be different. What I want to say to parents is when the child comes home and they are engaging in such behaviors, it is not a bad behavior, as people will say, but rather a child is being quite exhausted whilst in school, have done so much to fit into a certain place, a certain situation, and now they've got their guards off when they are at home and they are feeling themselves at home. They feel a bit more comfortable at home in terms of having to do what they want to do. And then we look about the safetiness of it. What they are doing is in a safe way. What I would say is your child, when they are doing this, they are not doing it on purpose. They are not doing it to make you feel angry or for you to be annoying with them, but it's just their time to actually feel themselves. Sometimes as parents in our community will say, I've told you many times to stop. Why are you not stopping? You know what I mean? But it's not about the child stopping or not the child refusing to stop. It's just that they've become quite overwhelmed and they need that time to actually be themselves around the age. It is quite important that we know as parents that our responses and what we say to our children when they are in this state is important. If we do know our children, it's about having to have that conversation with them. It's about having to have a conversation about how was school and is there anything else that can be done to support. I'm not going to say maybe you're going to get an answer from there, but it's about working with the child to having some sort of a plan to support. We do hear a lot when it comes to meltdowns, and the term meltdown is something I want us to have some sort of conversation around. Meltdown is not a tantrum, I would say. Meltdown is where a child with autism traits present in order to express themselves. So the child may cry, they may want to remove themselves, they may want to be by themselves, they may just want their own sort of space because they have been in places where they become quite overwhelmed and they are there and they want to be by themselves. As parents, sometimes we may say to our children, come on, why are you being attention seeking? Why are you doing this? And we will constantly judge them, as well as we will constantly try to correct them. Okay, it is not the child's fault in terms of having to be in that noisy area, which had made the child become overwhelmed and unable to cope in such area, and then have taken it to come home and want that safe place to actually sit and be themselves. So it's about the understanding of it that, okay, this is what had happened, and has that make my child become overwhelmed. Okay, remember, when children are having the meltdowns, it's not that they are naughty, right? But it's about their brain working differently. Their brain is working different in a way that a certain place they have struggled there, and they are in their own safe space where they feel a bit more relaxed. Okay. Now, as parents, when these happens, there are certain things that we can say to our children to make them feel safe. Not only saying, but then what do we then do to help as well? We need to try and stay calm. We need to be calmer with them. There is the shouting, the screaming will not help. And saying that punishment at that moment when our children are overwhelmed or are having a meltdown doesn't mean that it's going to help. Punishment will not help. However, calmness is going to help. As parents, when they are having these meltdowns, it's about lowering your voice, calmer, having a calm conversation with the child. If any, try to remove them from any sort of loud places. Give them space if you can, how safe it is. Give the child a space to have that time of their own. Again, I'm going to say this again, having to scream and shout and punish is not going to help, but rather calming and understanding is going to help our children. Let's look, for example, about everyday sort of situations that may cause meltdown. Noise. It can be TV, loudness on the TV. It can be people playing and screaming and shouting, people talking. These are all things that can trigger and cause a child to have some sort of difficulties when it comes to meltdown and may struggle. At home, there is quite important when it comes to identify a child's difficulties when it comes to autism, and putting in what we call some sort of a routine to help the child with everyday sort of life. Routine doesn't need to be complicated. For example, it could be that every evening mealtime will be the same. Not particularly it has to be the same meal, but the same. It's about the awareness of a child knowing that, okay, I have dinner at this time, so that when you call them, they know that it's actually time for meal. Having a sort of routine we can have a morning routine, we can have afternoon routine. Afternoon probably will be in school, where school hopefully will put those kind of routines in. But at home, evening time, the routine is really important. Example, we also need to give children time prompts for them to know. So if it's time to bath, they will know, but prompting them to say, oh, you've got some time, you've got about 5 minutes or so to get your bath done will be really helpful. Individuals with autism do like predictability. They don't like unpredictability. Changes are sometimes very difficult, and I do know that some people like change, which change is good in a way, but individuals with autism, because their brain is working differently, changes, they find it really difficult at times. And in terms of having to talk to your child when they are having these meltdowns, or not even having a meltdown. It's about general sort of conversations, having a general conversation with your child. Instead of asking them why they are always doing a particular thing, which is, correcting the child, try and find out from the child that I can see this is a bit difficult for you. How do you want to do it? Focus on strength rather than talking about negatives. Why are you always doing this? Why are you always like that? Why are you always like that? It makes the child really doubt themselves. Are they doing things correctly? And constantly they are doubting because they never know what good and what bad will look like. And it really impacts in terms of their mental state. When talking to our children, we need to give them time to respond to us. And what I mean by that is we may ask a question and we may want the answer straight away, but it's not like that. It's about giving the child the time to think, process the information in order to respond to you. Some may have delayed in terms of responses, and that delay in responding to the question or the answer that you want, it's not just because they are slow or anything, but it's them processing the information and trying to give you the right answer. So when we ask questions, we need to give them that time, stay calmer, and let them respond to us. Think of it this way. When they are silent, when you ask them a question, it means they are thinking. Discipline still is important when it comes to our children and some behaviors. But we need to think about these disciplines. Is it more causing fear in the child? Because fear makes behaviors worse. Let's put it this way. A child may refuse homework because they are overwhelmed. And instead of shouting on the child, we need to break things into smaller parts for them. Because when they are overwhelmed, we need to be calmer. We need to give them time. But then when we feel they can't actually engage, it's about breaking things into smaller chunks for them to be able to do it. You can't just expect that because when you were younger, you were able to do this, for example, English homework or mathematics homework, meaning that your child should be able to do it because they are born in the UK, in Germany, or any other country that you are listening from. Okay, could work different to what the child's brain is working at the moment. So the screaming, the shouting would not help in terms of managing the situation. Again, discipline is important to use, but then where discipline will turn into a fear in the child is really going to impact our children. When a child does well, it's about having to mention to the child. Normally, children with autism, we do see that a lot of the time parents will correct them most of the time. However, they also need encouragement. And when they do something, we need to identify strength, activities, things they do, things they say. If they've done really well, we need to give them that encouragement to say, look, you have done really well. Keep on doing it. Rather than focusing on the negatives. Oh, you've done it. Why didn't you do it this way? All right. We need to think about the little things that we can do to make our children value themselves. And it's quite important when we are saying this, valuing themselves and believing in themselves and not thinking constantly that they are always the bad ones or they are always the ones that people are constantly correcting and it looks like they've not done anything wrong, anything right. It's also important that whilst we are listening to our children and whilst we are also supporting our children to understand themselves, as parents, we also have to look after ourselves. Looking after ourselves will mean that we will try in a way. For example, many of us as parents, we may feel tired. We may feel embarrassed in public because of the way children may behave. We may feel worried that as parents, we may be judged or our children may be judged because of their behaviors. Now, looking after ourselves will mean that we will understand the children, and we will respond, and we will have time to take time to ourselves. We may want to say, all right, there is us now, and we need to have the meantime. And also, whilst having the meantime, having a think about what can be done in terms of managing situation. In terms of progress time, I may look like fewer meltdown for our children, because they kind of know that as parents, we kind of, in a way, understand them, where when they are having meltdowns, we are not screaming and shouting at them, because we understand. As parents, we are also looking after ourselves in a way that we are having some time to ourselves, so that we don't just get overwhelmed ourselves in order to put our own stress on our children to make things difficult for them. So then that's when we see progress in our children, where there will be fewer meltdowns, there will be quicker calm down times when they are having these meltdowns, and their communication do get better. Okay. Now, if any of our sayings today sounds like you're home, please hear this from yourself. You are not alone. Your child is not broken, or your child is not failing. Autism changes how we understand things. However, when our understanding has improved, not only does it help us, but it also helps the children to understand themselves, to know that there are brighter and good things ahead of them, rather than the negativity that they constantly experience. One thing is, if us as parents, we don't put these positives to our children, it becomes really difficult that when they do go outside and people tells them positive things, they even struggle to actually accept them, as they feel that within their own homes, they are not having such experiences. Autism affects how the brain works, and we look out for the positives of the brain working. What I normally say to people is, individuals with autism think outside the box. Me and you, or whoever says they haven't got autism, sometimes when we are thinking in quite a linear, straightforward lines. We don't think about outside the box. But individuals with autism are thinking about the why. Why are these things being done? And that's why sometimes they do ask questions they want to know. Okay, so we need to focus on their strength, particularly with our children, and build and channel their interests and their strengths to things they want to do. Channeling their interests to these things will help them in terms of their future progress. Thank you for today. Now, on next episode, we will focus more on autism. But until then, I will say, join me on Adwene Nkomo on our next episode. And please do not forget to actually share this episode. Komo it can be found on all social media platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Please do like and share our podcast, and we are looking forward with our next episode. Thank you. I'm your host, Kofi Ajay.